Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel, and we have a great show for you guys today where we'll be discussing the Panthers take a commanding 3-0 lead on the Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup Final. It looks like the Florida Panthers will take away the Stanley Cup Final for the 2023-2024 season. However, there is still another game left to be played, so don't count the chickens before they hatch. That's what we're going to be talking about in segment 2. If the Edmonton Oilers have a plausible chance of coming back in this series. You could also stick around for the segment 3, where we will be discussing a bunch of trade rumors, including Martin Necas of the Carolina Hurricanes, Patrick Laine of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and Nikolai Ehlers of the Winnipeg Jets. In our fourth segment of tonight, we're going to be talking about the Utah, their new brand, and how it really reflects their entire franchise as a whole. And then in our fifth and final segment of the night, we're going to be talking about Ryan Warsofsky, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. He was named as the San Jose Sharks head coach. We're going to be talking about the state of that franchise right now, what he's coming into, and what they are looking at in terms of a future. But before, of course, we get into all of that, as always, if you would like to help support the show in any way, use the GSMCpodcast.net tips and donations link. It does help the GSMC Sports Network a lot, and it really does go a long way to support us and the creators here at the GSMC Sports Network. So if you want to help out in any way, use the GSMCpodcast.net tips and donations link. And without further ado, as always, we're going to get right into this. Oilers and Stars. Game 3. This game played, of course, in Rogers Place in Edmonton. This was the first time we saw Edmonton host a Stanley Cup Final since 2007, when they lost to the Anaheim Ducks, I believe, 2007, 2006. Not Anaheim Ducks, when they lost to the Carolina Hurricanes. I believe that was 2006, actually. So 2006, that was the last time we saw Rogers Place in a Stanley Cup Final. Now, it was absolutely electric. The environment here at Rogers Place was, something I haven't really seen before in a Stanley Cup Final. And I really enjoyed watching the build-up to this game. I mean, right from when the puck dropped, even when they were doing the national anthems, it really just seemed like such a fun place to be. Unfortunately for the crowd and the fans at Rogers Place in Edmonton, Alberta, on that Thursday evening, it did not come to be. While the Florida Panthers are just showing how swarming this defense really can be. Of course, this game started, we'll go right into the game breakdown as we always do. This game started with a Sam Reinhart goal. It was an assist from Gustav Forsling. It was really just a Gustav Forsling. This was clearly a pass from him, and it was an intended play. I believe Sam Reinhart had... Was it Evan Bouchard on him? I know it was a defender on Sam Reinhart. But Gustav Forsling does really well to put the puck on the stick of Sam Reinhart, and was able to beat. I believe it was Evan Bouchard who was right there on the backside with Sam Reinhart. But Sam Reinhart is able to just kind of tip this in from the pass, from the point from Gustav Forsling. It was also a fantastic play from Alexander Barkov to keep the puck in to the zone, get a pass to Gustav Forsling. He kept the puck in, did a little spin around, kept the puck in for Gustav Forsling. Gustav Forsling sent it on the net. It goes to Sam Reinhart. Sam Reinhart scores. Very impressive play from those three. Great link up. Gustav Forsling, of course, so impressive in this game. This happened 1 minute into this game, and it really did affect how the Edmonton Oilers played, as they started off very well, but this happened, and then it kind of sucked the life out of them for this first period. The Florida Panthers do a fantastic job playing in the offensive zone, getting turnovers that create high percentage chances, and the Edmonton Oilers did really good at not giving those up in the first couple of games. But in this game, giving that up was very unfortunate for the Edmonton Oilers. And it was just a bad play from Evan Bouchard, who couldn't knock Sam Reinhart off the puck. It was also Stuart Skinner on this play. He comes out to play Gustav Forsling. Of course, when you are facing a shot from the point, you go out of the net a little bit to cut down on the angle of places that the puck can really travel. However, he knows that Sam Reinhart is on that far side, and I would have loved to see Stuart Skinner stay a little bit back in the crease. He, on this goal, was completely out of the crease, was fully out. Both skates on that white ice. And you have Sam Reinhart on the back door, and you know he's on the back door, and you saw him on the back door, and you're just... he's way too far out, and I think if he's a little bit closer to the net, he drops down into the butterfly once Gustav Forsling. He sends a shot along the ice. I mean, you could have went down into the butterfly, and he absolutely saves this if he does that. So I think this goal is definitely on Stuart Skinner a little bit, and it's on the defenseman that was on Sam Reinhart, who I believe is Evan Bouchard, but I could be wrong about that. Next goal of this game, it was Warren Foegele with an absolute snipe on Sergei Bobrovsky, and it was a very impressive goal. I've been saying it all series long. They need to lift the puck on Sergei Bobrovsky. You cannot beat this guy if you just stay down low and stay 5-hole and stay low pad side. Warren Foegele takes that, and he does go top side of the net there. It was a fantastic goal from him. Adam Henrique getting the primary assist and the only assist on this one. It really goes to show how lackluster their superstars have been, that Warren Foegele and Adam Henrique are combining for your first goal of this game here. They need their superstars to show up, and we're going to be definitely talking about that in the second segment. But onto this game, the Florida Panthers then go and score 3 goals in the next 6 minutes. It's Vladimir Tarasenko, it's Eetu Luostarinen, and Anton Lundell that combined for their second goal of the night midway through the second period. It's a fantastic goal from Vladimir Tarasenko. Sam Bennett scores from an assist from Matthew Tkachuk. It was a very impressive goal from Sam Bennett here, and a good and a really good assist from Matthew Tkachuk. And then immediately after that, only about 2 minutes after that, it's Alexander Barkov with the fourth goal. With the fourth goal of the night through 2 periods here. Alexander Barkov gets the assist from Evan Rodriguez and Sam Reinhart. Sam Reinhart had a fantastic game. Alexander Barkov had a fantastic game. Gustav Forsling had a fantastic game. The only guy that we really talk about a lot with the Panthers who didn't have a fantastic game was Sergei Bobrovsky, but he still had a near 930 save percentage in this one, so definitely not his worst performance here. Very impressive what he's been able to do all series long. A 1.33 goals against average now for Bob. Very impressive. But the Edmonton Oilers definitely did take a charge in this game. It was Philip Broberg from McDavid and Darnell Nurse getting the score within 2 here, and then they're able to score again in the third period. It's Ryan McLeod on Brett Kulak and Connor McDavid, again his second assist of the night for Connor McDavid. For the Oilers, they definitely had a chance here at the end. They had Connor McDavid got past the defense. He goes around the net, sends the puck into the slot from behind the net. Sergei Bobrovsky is absolutely scrambling, and it goes to Ryan McLeod's stick. And if Ryan McLeod lifts the puck, this game is a tied hockey game, and they're going into overtime with all the momentum in the world. But Ryan McLeod is unable to lift the puck, just sends it right in on Sergei Bobrovsky's bottom pads. He rushed the shot. He needed to, but he needs to think lifting the puck there, getting some height on this, putting it in the upper half of the net, and it's a goal. But he's unable to do so, and this game just goes to the Florida Panthers as they're able to kill the time as the Oilers pull Stuart Skinner, but it didn't matter. The Panthers do really good at killing time when they are at that man disadvantage on a 6-on-5. Brought the puck to the corner of their defensive zone, and it stayed there for the last 20 seconds of this game. So the Florida Panthers come away with this Game 3 victory. It is a 3-0 series lead that the Florida Panthers have on the Edmonton Oilers. The stars of the night, I have my first star of the night going to Gustav Forsling. Not the offensive side of this, but the defensive for Gustav Forsling. He does add a little bit of offensive production with an assist, but I'm really looking at the 4 hits. I'm really looking at the 4 hits that he gave and the 28-41 minutes of ice time that he has. Gustav Forsling had to match Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in this game, and had to match the intensity that those guys come out with every single game. He's done it in Game 1, done it in Game 2, and did it again here in Game 3. Of course, Connor McDavid getting a couple of assists on the night, but all for naught, and in most part because of this guy, Gustav Forsling. We talk about him plenty, but really I can't emphasize enough how important this guy has been for the Florida Panthers, how important of an acquisition this guy really was back in 2021 when the Florida Panthers and Bill Zito got him off of waivers from the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes didn't see enough in him, and that is why you got to hang on to guys kind of like this. There are just slow developers in the NHL. Gustav Forsling was one of them, but now developing into a bona fide top 2 defenseman. Very impressive what Gustav Forsling has been able to do in the Stanley Cup Finals. A large part of why the Florida Panthers have a 3-0 series lead. Without this guy, I don't think that the Panthers are winning the series. Really, to be quite frank with you, he does so well at getting the dangerous forwards away from the net. Zach Hyman is in his own personal, he can't get past Gustav Forsling in front of the net, and that's what happens. So, very impressive what this guy's able to do. Of course, he is alongside Aaron Ekblad, who is a fantastic defenseman in his own right. Both of them playing some of the best defensive-minded defenseman play that I've seen in a very long time together. And then, of course, we got to talk about Alexander Barkov. This guy is special. He's just a different talent, and we talk about him so often. 1 goal, 1 assist, and a +2 on the plus-minus. Alexander Barkov, the best defensive forward in the game. He also can do it on the offensive side, and he showed that in this game. Gets the game-winning goal for the Florida Panthers. At the time, it was to go up 4-1. We thought it was just insurance. But it proved to be a very important insurance goal. So Alexander Barkov gets the second star of the night for the Florida Panthers. It was kind of tough to decide it between those two guys, whether I was going to go with Gustav Forsling but Alexander Barkov. But I chose to go with Gustav Forsling because I truly believe that he is the difference maker right now for the Florida Panthers, because he's taking Zach Hyman completely out of this game, and it's so impressive what he's able to do whenever that first line is out there on the ice. It is also very impressive what Alexander Barkov is able to do playing against Connor McDavid for most of the time. So that'll wrap it up for this first segment of the night, talking about Florida's victory over the Edmonton Oilers. When I come back, we will, of course, be talking about whether or not the Oilers can overcome a 3-0 series deficit and what they need to do to turn the tide of this series into their favor.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We're going to get right into our second segment, talking about whether or not the Oilers can overcome a 3-0 series deficit, or if this is too tall of a task to ask of them. First off, to understand if they can, we want to look at the historical outcomes with 3-0 series in Stanley Cup Finals and in just, regular overall playoffs here. For the Stanley Cup Finals, it has happened one time before, in the 1942 Stanley Cup Final. That was between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings. This is the only time it's happened in the Stanley Cup Final, as I said. So it's happened before, and historically, you can do it. It happened in 1942. That was 84, or I don't know if I did that math correct. 88 years ago, somewhere around there. It was a very long time ago. 82? Yes, 82 years ago. I know how to do math. But there has been times that it has happened elsewhere in the playoffs. It has happened 4 times in total in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. It has happened between the New York Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins in the 1975 Stanley Cup quarterfinals, which was the second round, I believe. This was the year that the New York Islanders won 8 games facing elimination. Very impressive what they were able to do. Of course, this is the Islanders team with, I believe it had Mike Bossy on it. I believe it had, what's his name? Oh, that's going to annoy me. I'll get back to you. He became a Flyer later in his career. Oh, I can't believe I just blanked on that name. That is a Hall of Famer. But for the New York Islanders in 1975, fantastic team that they were able to take a reverse sweep against the Pittsburgh Penguins. In 2010, it has happened. So it has happened in this, millennium. The Philadelphia Flyers did it on the Boston Bruins in 2010. This, of course, was on the Philadelphia Flyers' way to play in the Stanley Cup Finals, where they would eventually lose to the Chicago Blackhawks in that Stanley Cup Finals. We all know that goal that only Patrick Kane saw go in 2010 to win the Chicago Blackhawks that Stanley Cup Final. And then in 2014, it happened on the Los Angeles Kings over the San Jose Sharks. On the Los Angeles Kings' way to winning that Stanley Cup Final in 2014, their second in 3 years in 2012 and 2014, of course, for the Los Angeles Kings. So for this Edmonton Oilers team, yes, it has happened, and it actually has happened recently. It's happened twice in this, twice in the last 14 years. But can this Edmonton Oilers team do it is really the question we need to be asking. And for this Edmonton Oilers team, I do believe that they do have some things that go in their favor when it comes to this season. First off, this team is a very streaky team. We saw this in the regular season where they had a horrific start to the season, going 9-18-2, I believe, to open up the season. Of course, firing their head coach. And then they changed coaches. They win 16 games in a row from December to January. 16 games in a row. This team is a streaky team, and this team knows how to go on win streaks, and this team is able to do, of course, is able to go on win streaks. But against the Florida Panthers, it's a very, very tall task, and that's what I would be worried about if I were to be this Edmonton Oilers team, or if I were to be an Edmonton Oilers fan. This Florida Panthers team doesn't give anything. You need to take everything that you want against this team. We saw this against the New York Rangers, who are a fantastic team. We saw this against the Boston Bruins, who made the Maple Leafs look kind of, silly in that Game 7 and in that first round. And then, of course, we saw it against the Tampa Bay Lightning team, who just won 2 Stanley Cup Finals not too long ago. This Florida Panthers team is really, really good, and they absolutely deserve to be where they're at in this playoffs. Beating the Tampa Bay Lightning in 5 games, beating the Boston Bruins in 6 games, beating the New York Rangers in 6 games, and now having a 3-0 series lead on the Stanley Cup Finals. This team is just that good. This team is a fantastic team. But on the other side, when you're looking at this Edmonton Oilers team, it's not a bad team. They just need to put it together, and their superstars need to start producing. This is what we were going to talk about in segment 1. Held it off here a little bit for the segment 2. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Evan Bouchard, Evander Kane, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Dylan Holloway. These players haven't scored a goal yet in this Stanley Cup Finals. The Edmonton Oilers have scored 4 goals this entire Stanley Cup Finals. It's Philip Broberg, Matthias Ekholm, Ryan McLeod, and Warren Foegele are your 4 goal scorers. Darnell Nurse hasn't scored a goal. Connor McDavid, of course, assisted on 3 of these goals. There was only 1 goal this Stanley Cup Final that Connor McDavid hasn't had a contribution on. But that's not just enough. Their superstars need a score, and they need to figure it out. You pay these guys so much money, not to ghost in the most important games. You need to get production from Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl especially. This team is a completely different team when Leon Draisaitl is producing. We see it all the time. I saw this in the Dallas Stars series. They lost the games that Leon Draisaitl didn't play well, and they won the games where Leon Draisaitl did play well. Leon Draisaitl hasn't had a point yet in the Stanley Cup Finals, and you know that's wearing on him, and you know he's working on that. And this won't last, and I truly believe he's going to have a great Game 4. But he needs to. He needs to start showing up for this Edmonton Oilers team. But he could be the difference. If Leon Draisaitl is producing at the levels Leon Draisaitl, of course, historically produces at, they win that Game 3. Truly, they win that Game 3. They are more competitive in that Game 1, which, just a few chances escaped them, and they really could have. The thing with Leon Draisaitl is he's getting chances in this Stanley Cup Finals. In that Game 3, he had, I think, 3 high percentage scoring chances on a power play where he just missed the net on shots that were cross-crease feeds from Connor McDavid, who found him brilliantly. Leon Draisaitl needs to figure it out. He needs to start producing for this Edmonton Oilers team, or they're not going to go anywhere. Or they're not going to, win a game here. If you have that production from Leon Draisaitl, that's a completely different team. Evan Bouchard, he only has 1 point in these playoffs. He is a point per game in the playoffs or leading up to the Stanley Cup Finals, and he hasn't been able to produce in the Stanley Cup Final. You also have Zach Hyman, who he might still be the leading goal scorer in these playoffs with 14. Not a single goal. I don't even think I named him when I was naming the forwards that haven't played well yet. He hasn't gotten a single point or, screw point because he doesn't get assists normally. He hasn't gotten a goal. This 50-goal scorer hasn't scored in the Stanley Cup Final, and of course that's not because of him. It's because Gustav Forsling is completely taking him out of the game, and that's completely fair. For the Florida Panthers, they're not letting the superstars of Edmonton beat them. They have a very great game plan to beat this Edmonton Oilers team. They really are just... If Mattias Ekholm beats us, Mattias Ekholm beats us. And we do have a comment from Mark Deitz. Oilers have been a victim of their high draft picks for years. No team built behind them, and the top players get worn out. And you are completely correct, Mark. We saw this with the mid-2010s Oilers when they had so much talent. Of course, Nugent Hopkins, Taylor Hall. When Connor McDavid was first starting out, Nail Yakupov. You have this talent, but the goaltender is awful, and the defense is awful. And you're looking down the list, and you have these 5 great guys on offense, and you can score goals with them, but you're giving up so many. And this has been, as you said, Mark, to go with your comment here, it's really true. They just haven't built. See, what I look on paper when I look at the Florida Panthers roster, they have Vladimir Tarasenko on a third line. That is what a Stanley Cup final and what a Stanley Cup champion roster is, right? Or, an Oliver Ekman-Larsson on the third line defensive pairing. The depth pieces being able to produce, but not just be able to produce. You can put them out there on the ice and have faith that they'll get a positive production from them. The Edmonton Oilers don't have this, and to your point there, they need depth. They need depth in their defense because Cody Ceci is a nightmare. Like, truly, he just doesn't look like he is up to par with everybody else in this Stanley Cup Finals. Darnell Nurse is not worth his contract. Truly, $9.25 million for that guy is not looking good for the Edmonton Oilers. And then Evan Bouchard and Mattias Ekholm have not been playing great defensively for this Edmonton Oilers team. They're not getting great production from the defense. And for the Edmonton Oilers, one, they need to figure it out quick because they are one game away from losing what is, potentially the greatest chance that Connor McDavid can get at a Stanley Cup in his career, because you don't know if you're going to be able to come back to this spot. we call it the most difficult trophy to win in all of sports for a reason. It is so difficult to make a Stanley Cup final, and it's so difficult to win a Stanley Cup final. You don't know if you'll ever see him back here again, and there's a chance that we don't. As a comment from Mark, the management just said, okay, go get them, guys, referring to the top guys, and they never had the brains to trade one for a top-notch goalie, and completely agree with you. If we're looking at this series, and if you just flip the goaltenders, I think Edmonton Oilers win this series. You can clearly see the talent gap between Sergei Bobrovsky and Stuart Skinner in this game. And they tried in free agency. They tried to get Jack Campbell, but truly, one season of Jack Campbell proved his worth one season in his entire career. And even last year, he wasn't great for the Toronto Maple Leafs, his contract year. And then the Edmonton Oilers said, this is our guy, and he's not playing for the team right now. Unfortunate he is not, but still, I don't think he makes a difference in this series either. The Edmonton Oilers are one game away from a defeat in the Stanley Cup final for good reason, and they really do need to figure it out. Their top guys need to start scoring, and they need to figure it out. But the Florida Panthers have a fantastic game plan. So can the Oilers overcome a 3-0 deficit? I'll answer the question that's on the screen right now. Truly, I don't believe they can. They are a streaky team, so if they have anything going for it, it is that they won 16 games in a row, and we see that they can go on these win streaks. But against this Florida Panthers team, I think it's too tall of a task, especially when you have to play back in Sunrise, Florida for 2 times. I don't think you're going to be able to beat them twice in Sunrise and 4 times in a row overall. So I would say that this series is done. Of course, if they start getting production out of Leon Draisaitl consistently, it could look a lot differently for the Edmonton Oilers. But that'll wrap it up for our second segment of the night on the GSMC Hockey Podcast. When I come back, we will be talking about Laine, Necas, and Nikolai Ehlers seeking trades and what that looks like for those teams going forward.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We're back with our third segment of the night, Laine and Necas seeking trades. But before I get into that, if you would like to support the GSMC Podcast Network in any way, use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. It goes a long way. But without further ado, let's get right into this next segment, Laine and Necas seeking trades and what that could look like for the teams. First off, Patrick Laine. We'll start with this guy, who is probably the biggest name. Of course, Martin Necas probably demands more in a return than Patrick Laine probably does for the Columbus Blue Jackets, but Laine is probably the biggest name involved in these trade talks right now. Of course, the Columbus Blue Jackets got Patrick Laine for Pierre-Luc Dubois back in 2021. They also got in return Jack Roslovic and a pick, I believe, for Pierre-Luc Dubois, and I believe there was another piece involved in that trade on the Blue Jackets side, but I cannot think. I don't know if it was Kevin Stenlund, but it definitely could have been. But for Patrick Laine, now having a couple of rough years in Columbus, you look at him now and you could consider him a shell of his former self, and I think that might be fair. He has now returned to that 30-goal scoring mark that he really set for himself in 2016, 2017, or 2017, 2018, and 2019, his first 3 years in the league. He hasn't been able to return to that form yet in his career. That could be because of the Blue Jackets. However, you look at so many superstars that play for the Blue Jackets, talking Artemi Panarin, talking maybe even Ryan Johansson, Matt Duchene. the Blue Jackets don't do good at, getting their most out of their superstars. You're looking at Johnny Gaudreau, and he's not a point per game anymore. He looks kind of like a shell of his former self. So for Patrik Laine, what can they get back? And Laine never seems to fit anywhere. Is he a real commodity? The thing with Patrik Laine is he has a, what do you want to say, top 10, top 20 shot in the NHL. And that could fit on a power play. And maybe, and this is what I really want to talk about here. I think he could fit very well on the Carolina Hurricanes, and I wouldn't be shocked to see a Laine for Nietzsche's trade. Clearly, both of these guys want out of their respective organizations here. Maybe Carolina doesn't have the cap space for this, so maybe the Blue Jackets would have to retain a little bit because Laine, of course, has that $8 million contract. But for the power play for the Carolina Hurricanes, they really do need a proven goal scorer in the NHL, and Laine has the potential to be a 40 goal scorer. We see his fantastic shot, especially when he's on that left wing of a power play, when he is able to, when he fits in a system and works very well. When he was on a line with Scheifele and Blake Wheeler in Winnipeg, he looked really good. And I think playing with Aho and maybe Teravainen, if they can re-sign Teravainen, or Aho and Seth Jarvis, who plays on that right wing, can be a very good fit for this Carolina Hurricanes team. But for the Blue Jackets, they could never find a center that could really find Laine, and they tried to play Laine at center, and I mean that just doesn't work. I mean he has the body for it, and he has the build for it, but his defense isn't up to par to play center in the NHL. Surely not. His faceoffs weren't that great, and it just didn't work out in Columbus. And it makes sense, but in Columbus, he had Boone Jenner as his center for most of his career in Columbus, and Boone Jenner, captain of that team, but is not a first-line NHL center, and that's where it gets rough for Patrik Laine. But if you trade Laine for Nietzsche's, I believe a 1-for-1 there could look really good for both teams, and could do and I think Laine can really flourish if he does go to the Carolina Hurricanes. And as far as Martin Necas, I mean, looking up some of his numbers right now, first off, he's 25 years old. He fits the timeline that the Columbus Blue Jackets are in. But for Martin Necas, first off, he's a center in the NHL. What do the Blue Jackets always need? No matter what they do, they always need a center. And Martin Necas can fill that role very well. Of course, the Blue Jackets will probably need to give up something else in this trade. I'm thinking maybe for the Blue Jackets, the problem with them is they have so much of the same, like small wingers. However, all of them are really needed in Columbus right now because their depth is not good. So, I mean, you can't move on from like a Kent Johnson. I don't think anybody really wants a Cole Sillinger. I don't think they're willing to move on from a Kirill Marchenko. Maybe an Alexander Texier can be involved in this trade, but I don't know if a team wants to take him on because of his risks, of course. Him not playing in the NHL in the year 2022 to 2023. So, I don't know if the Blue Jackets can find things that they want to give up in this trade between the two of them, or if maybe Don Waddell just knows who the Carolina Hurricanes favor from this Blue Jackets organization, because of course he was the general manager there before he became the Blue Jackets general manager. So that's of course an interesting twist into this trade here. But for Martin Necas, he's got 53 points in 77 games played last year, was a fantastic player, 17 minutes of ice time, was playing on that second line in Carolina, really did well in the playoffs as well for the Carolina Hurricanes. Had 2 goals in their final 2 games when they were trying to make that 3-0 comeback on the New York Rangers. He definitely can, of course, he can be of use for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and Laine could be of use for the Carolina Hurricanes, but I do think that the Blue Jackets might try to do a 1-for-1, see what else that would take for them as well. But I think just a swap here would be a great look. It kind of reminds me of that Pierre-Luc Dubois Patrik Laine swap that we saw in 2022. A very similar look to that because Pierre-Luc Dubois, who is a center, not enjoying it in his team, traded for Patrick Laine, where you're thinking, okay, Laine would help their power play a lot, a power play that does need a proven goal scorer on it. We could see something. So we could see something similar, but I do just think Carolina Hurricanes are a better organization than the Columbus Blue Jackets are, and can make the most out of a player like Patrick Laine, who he does have talent, and you're looking at him, and he's a great skater. He is a great stick handler, and he has one of the best shots in the NHL. So I think anybody would welcome that winger on their team. And as far as Martin Necas, he is a great center on a great team. For the Carolina Hurricanes, of course, the 12th overall pick for them in 2017. But also Nikolai Ehlers, there are some trade rumors with him and Winnipeg. I don't know if he officially requested a trade, as I do know these two have officially requested a trade. But for Nikolai Ehlers, I don't know what return you would get for a guy like that. Of course, a center, pretty great defensive center at that. I think of Nikolai Ehlers as a second-line center more than a first-line center, at least on a playoff team. So I do believe that would take a high-end first round, maybe a top-tier winger with a prospect, or maybe a great defensive prospect, something along those lines for Nikolai Ehlers. It is interesting with him and his situation because we don't really know where the Winnipeg Jets are at. We assume that they're a buyer, as they did have a fantastic regular season this year and earned the first seed in the Central, if I'm not mistaken. But in the playoffs, they get just completely swept out of it, and they didn't really have any hope, as it was a horrible showing from I can't believe I'm blanking on the goaltender's name. I actually can't believe I'm blanking on the goaltender's name for the Winnipeg Jets. He's one of the best goaltenders in the NHL. But anyways, when you have these pieces that just didn't get it done in the postseason, what do they want to do? Do they think that they have that roster that, we can clearly say that they can contend in the regular season, but when it came to the playoffs, they just completely fell on their face? So will they, or Connor Hellebuck, there he is. I can't believe I just blanked on his name. I knew it would come back to me. Connor Hellebuck's the goaltender for the Winnipeg Jets. But for this Winnipeg Jets roster, we don't really know where they're at. So trading away a proven commodity in Nikolai Ehlers just doesn't make sense to me for the Winnipeg Jets, but we'll see. Of course, going into this offseason, it's going to be a crazy one in the NHL, as there are so many teams that are just all over the place, not really having an identity. Washington Capitals, Pittsburgh Penguins, Blue Jackets, Flyers. Those are 4 Metro teams that I don't think that they have really a direction right now. It'll be interesting to see what a lot of these teams do in the offseason as we are getting to it, as we are one game away from the Florida Panthers winning it all if they do win. But that'll wrap it up for our third segment of the night. For that, such big money for seasoned players these days, and they could come to a team and suck. I prefer what Conroy is doing in Calgary, building from within mostly. I actually completely agree with that. I mean, I look at the Johnny Gaudreau sign in Columbus, and they're really tied with a contract like that, 9.25. You look at the Seth Jones contract in Chicago, 9.25 for him, who just Chicago has been nothing but dreadful since he signed over there. The New York Islanders, the New York Islanders really tried to build from trades and free agency and re-signing players, but that hasn't worked out for them. The Carolina Hurricanes try to do it. That hasn't worked out for them. So Calgary has had great opportunity. They just haven't been able to get that playoff success, and then their entire roster blew up when it did blow up, and they had opportunity there. We'll see what they look like next season. I don't know if the Calgary Flames would really be contenders next season, as we'll see if they do go into a full rebuild, which I think that they might just go into, see if they trade, high-end guys from their team right now. So we'll see what they do in this offseason. I think that might be one of the more interesting teams of this offseason, especially of how great the Pacific is looking right now. But that'll wrap it up for our third segment of the night. When we come back, we'll be talking about the Utah Hockey Club and their design and give you my thoughts on that.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We're going to go straight into our fourth segment of the night, talking about the Utah Hockey Club and their design, as I do have their design right here on the screen for you guys. If you haven't seen already, I'm assuming that anybody that's watching this has seen this already. I'm going to just say it. This is bad. This is awful. I don't like the design whatsoever. I love the colors. And if they want to go with these colors, the Yeti, the Blizzard, they have so many options for a team, that's based out of Utah. It's bad, and I'll make the joke. This is just the Washington football team, but Utah Hockey Club is awful. It's like they're trying to make it like a soccer club or a football club, like Real Madrid FC. No, Utah Hockey Club. This is not good, and I really just, first, my thoughts here, I don't like it. But the governor of the Utah Hockey Club, when this got announced, and when it got announced yesterday, today is a monumental day for the state of Utah as we officially close on the establishment of a new NHL franchise. Ryan Smith, governor of Utah Hockey Club and chairman of Smith Entertainment Group, said the NHL has been incredible to work with throughout this process, providing us with invaluable guidance and support. We have a ton of work to do. Training camp starts in less than 100 days and could not be more excited about what's to come. I can't stand it. It's just lazy to me. Like, honestly, they came out with the poll of what, surface to lead from the fans, and you have the Blizzard, which I loved. I actually really did love what you can make up from the Blizzard. I actually loved the Yeti. I thought that was very creative and very cool. But this just looks like you start a Eschel team with your buddies on NHL 24, and you just can't be asked to take your time and make it look cool. So you put together this. Really don't like it. It reminds me of the Washington football team and how awful that looked, and how the consensus was it just wasn't that great. Of course, this is not permanent. They're gonna pick a team. They just couldn't pick one within the time that they kind of needed to get going with rolling out jerseys for next season, as that is coming up, and they're going to be able to sell jerseys of these, and it's going to lead into even more jersey sales, because when they do redesign to their actual design, people are going to have these jerseys that have, Clayton Keller, who is going to be a mainstay of the Utah Hockey Club, of maybe a Lawson Krause or a Nick Schultz, or maybe a Logan Cooley, who I think is a fantastic player, and I would be so excited to have him if I were the Utah Hockey Club. But, first off, this team is in a really good hands, and we're going to talk about the team a little bit as we are talking about the Utah Hockey Club. But they don't have a single defenseman signed, and that is worrisome. I can't imagine a team without a defenseman. They have 3 RFA defensemen, of course, that they can re-sign. They have Shea Weber, who's on the LTIR, who I don't know if he medically retired yet, but I think that would be coming if he isn't yet. They also have in their system Maverick Lamoro. They have Victor Soderstrom, who might be able to produce at the NHL level come next year, but they definitely need to work on this team. They have a lot of money to do so that is good. They do have $43 million in cap space to do something, but yeah, it's not great. I think they could have honored the Coyotes by choosing a name like Yeti or whatever and done a really funky logo like the original Phoenix team. And that's what I'm saying is, like, I think that you could do something really cool with the Yeti. If I were to choose the team name, I think the Yeti is what I would go for. I think that it could also lead to, little name rivalry with the Avalanche or something like that. Of course, the proximity and playing in the Central does that as well. But I think this is the worst case scenario for them. It strikes me as lazy, just picking Utah Hockey Club. First off, and I'll probably do a segment later in the summer when it gets into the offseason and I'm looking for ideas about worst jersey designs in NHL history. I actually really don't like the city name across the, in a diagonal across the front. Pittsburgh doing it was awful. The only one that can do it in my mind is New York because they were really the first ones. But I think it was Tampa Bay with the lightning across the front. I can't stand. I think it was San Jose also did it. That it just doesn't look good, and I think it's just lazy. In the NHL, a lot of their jerseys are about that logo in the front and that huge logo that takes up like half the jersey, and it strikes you as this is a hockey jersey. Having that, it's like all of the baseball jerseys that have just the city name across the front, which I love because those are baseball jerseys and that it belongs there. But for hockey, it doesn't belong, and I don't like it at all. But we'll see how it looks on the ice. I might, jury's out. First off, I really do think the logo's cool with the Utah Hockey Club. I don't mind that. I think that would look really cool on the ice. I also love the colors. The color scheme, just like that light blue, the white, the black, I think is really cool. And I think that there's a lot that they can do with that. And when they do pick a team, whether it's the Blizzard, whether it's the Yeti, I think that it could be very interesting to see what that would look like. I think it could be a really cool design, and they have so much potential with it. It's just what I'm looking at right now is a little bit lazy, and if I were on the design team, I wouldn't like it personally. But the team is in really good hands, and they have a high draft pick in this draft where they could get a player like Sam Dickinson, a Tijin Ginla, a Berkeley Catton, somebody like that level, maybe a Silyev could fall into their arms. So the team is in good hands. The ownership clearly cares about the team. So we'll see how the product is on the ice. But in terms of the branding, I don't like it at all. I think that it was just lazy. These jerseys are bad. I'm waiting for the day. It's just advertising. It's coming. Well, I mean, yeah. First off, at least it's a little bit refreshing with the jerseys because they don't have that logo shoulder patch that every single jersey has. By the way, I have a huge problem with how the Florida Panthers have the LaCroix shoulder patch, which forces the C or the A on like Barkov, Ekblad to be like pushed aside by the Stanley Cup final. Like I just think that that's tacky. You see it in like the Liga, the Swedish Hockey League, or like the Russian Hockey League, where the entire ice is advertisement, the entire jerseys are advertisement, and I can't stand that. And I kind of worry that that's where we're going for in the NHL because, of course, it's not as funded as the other North American sports. But we'll see what comes from that. Hopefully, we aren't going to see that someday, but that'll wrap it up for the Utah Hockey Club. We'll see what the product looks like on the ice, but for right now, I would reserve buying a jersey until next year when they figure out a team name, kind of like the Commanders of the NFL. But we'll get right into our fifth and final segment of the night. The Sharks hired a new head coach from within. We'll look at where he's come from, what he's been able to achieve as a head coach in the past, and what that organization looks like going into this offseason and going into the draft. Welcome back to our fifth and final segment of the GSMC Hockey Podcast, where we will be discussing the San Jose Sharks and how they hired a new head coach heading into their offseason, heading into draft season. And I do agree with the hiring of a coach right now. I really think that a team needs to figure out who's going to lead their helm, what that team's going to look like, what kind of game plan he's implementing, so that they can kind of make a plan going into this offseason with him, have him in mind. And I think that that's what the San Jose Sharks are looking for, of course, firing their head coach after they were the worst team in the NHL this past season. This team is not great on paper, but they really have a lot of great things to look at. But before we get into that, I haven't even said it's Ryan Warsofsky. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. He is normally an AHL head coach. He really has worked his way up. Not really a guy that had much of a playing career. He is 38 years old, or he's 36 years old. Ryan Warsofsky is. He was a Div 3 assistant coach where he started at. He went up to an ESHL assistant coach, then an AHL assistant coach at the Charlotte Checkers in 2018-2019. Where he would take over as a head coach. He won the Calder Cup with the Charlotte Checkers in the AHL, he also won the Calder Cup with the Chicago Wolves, where he went to be a head coach. And now he's with the San Jose Sharks. He was the assistant coach last year for the San Jose Sharks. He was also Team USA's assistant coach in the in the IHF World Juniors. I think that's the World Juniors. I don't think that's the IHF tournament that just finished. But he was just named as the San Jose Sharks NHL head coach. And I think that this is a really great idea. I think hiring a guy right now in the season is really smart for a lot of these guys. You're looking at the draft, so he gets a say in the scouting and who he likes in this draft class, saying what the team needs, whether they want to go with defense or they're going to go with Macklin Celebrini at number 1 overall. That's a foregone conclusion. We've known about this for the last 3 years, that Macklin Celebrini was the number 1 overall pick in this draft class. And then this past NCAA season that Macklin had really solidified that. But in this draft, it's Macklin Celebrini, a tier above everybody else, and we've known about that for this draft class for a very long time. So the San Jose Sharks lucked out getting the number 1 overall pick in the draft lottery. Now at a position to be able to kind of write him in on this team already. You also have guys like Mikael Granlund who are, bona fide NHL players who have been able to contribute in the NHL for a long time, mixed with a lot of young guys like a William Eklund who has flashed a lot for the San Jose Sharks team. Will Smith, who did not play for Yes, he played for Boston University last year, if I'm not mistaken, or Boston College. One of those two. But I know Will Smith will be on the NHL roster next year. He did just sign his entry-level contract this offseason. So Will Smith is somebody that, could have gone last year when those draft talks we're talking about in 2023. He could have gone all the way up to number 2 overall. I heard people say the Anaheim Ducks could have taken them. They elect to go Leo Carlson. The Blue Jackets elect to go Adam Fantilli, and then the San Jose Sharks get left gets left with Will Smith, who is a great consolation prize if you are that 4th overall team last year. They also have players like Marc-Edouard Vlasic, who don't really fit their timeline right now. This 37-year-old that's getting paid $7 million doesn't really fit for a team like the San Jose Sharks right now, but you're not going to be able to move on from him, so you're just kind of having to eat this $7 million for the next 2 years until he's 39 years old. So it was always going to be a bad contract when they signed it. It has proved to be a bad contract through now. Of course, you also have Logan Couture, who's on the LTIR. He's 35 years old. Hopefully they can get him back eventually. But for this San Jose Sharks team, in the system, they also have guys like... they don't have the best prospect pool, but they have guys like Philip Bysted, maybe a David Edstrom, Quentin Musty, who has flashed in the past, who can do something with this roster. Of course, this team is just in full rebuild mode. They do have a lot of money to spend in this offseason. They have $36 million. So they, you have a lot of guys that are unsigned, but Guys like Mike Hoffman, I think you just kind of let walk, who doesn't fit their timeline right now. Thomas Berdolo is 22 years old. You'll be able to re-sign him. Luke Kunin, probably re-sign him, the 26-year-old right winger, who has been kind of one of their bright spots. Hopefully they can re-sign Philip Zadina, who they went out and traded for. He could be a really great piece for this team. But this San Jose Sharks team is not great, and they are kind of far off. I think it's another few years until they're contending. Of course, with all of these great rosters, there do have to be some just not great rosters, and I think we're looking at one in San Jose. So that's what Ryan Warzowski is really taking over. But of course, they do have Macklin Celebrini on the way, who, I mean, we just saw Connor Bedard play very well for a Blackhawks team that is not good and very far away from being good. Connor Bedard playing very well for that team, helping them get some wins. Not finishing dead last in this season. Of course, they do finish as one of the bottom 3 teams in the NHL this season. But for the San Jose Sharks, getting a guy like Macklin Celebrini, not saying that Macklin Celebrini will have the same production as Connor Bedard. I truly don't think he will. I do believe Bedard. I think Bedard is on that Connor McDavid tier of prospects. And I think Macklin Celebrini, if I were to compare him to a prospect of the past, I think it would more be like that Nico Hischier tier, I might say. Or I don't want to say Jack Hughes, although I think it might be more like a Jack Hughes tier of prospect. Jack Hughes just hit his ceiling. Like, Jack Hughes is like where he's at if everything went right for Jack Hughes. And I think maybe this is the best way to put it. I think Jack Hughes is the ceiling of Macklin Celebrini, and maybe Nico Hischier is kind of the floor of Macklin. So we'll see how he turns out. I do think he is a great player, a fantastic playmaker who is great skater, great on the puck as well. And doing it in the NCAA, being able to be productive in that league is very difficult, especially for a team like Boston University, who was competing for an NCAA title this year. Very impressive what he was able to do, and getting a guy like that on the way for the San Jose Sharks team could be a fantastic asset for the San Jose Sharks team. Of course, as I said, they are very far off from being, contenders. I think that they're going to have another 2 or 3 years where they're, bottom feeder team in the NHL, so to speak. They are playing in a Pacific division where you have the Edmonton Oilers, where you have teams on the up like the Ducks, who are on the up, just haven't really shown it, especially this past year. The Vegas Golden Knights, of course, being the mainstay top-tier team in that league. The Vancouver Canucks, who are fantastic. The Calgary Flames, who doesn't matter who's on that team, they do tend to do well in the regular season. So we'll see how long it does take the San Jose Sharks team, and if Ryan Warzowski will be on the team, quite frankly, when they do get around to being good, because I do think he is going into a kind of bad situation here in San Jose and kind of could be set up to fail. But of course, he could just, blow my expectations out of the water. He has not had an NHL head coaching job, so I don't really have anything to go off of, although he is a 2-time Calder Cup winner on 2 different teams in the AHL. I just, it's different when we're talking about a guy that hasn't had that NHL head coaching experience, especially when the NHL is so heavy of just recycling head coaches around and around. Guys that are mainstay coaches in the NHL tend to kind of stay in the NHL and coach for a long time and, coach on multiple teams. So we'll see what Ryan Warzowski can do with the San Jose Sharks team as they're getting ready for the number 1 overall pick. They have a lot of cap space. They can do a lot in this offseason, have a lot of assets to be able to trade as well. So we'll see what this team looks like going into next season, and I can't wait to see kind of what moves that Ryan Warzowski helps makes on San Jose. But that'll wrap it up for this Friday edition of the GSMC Hockey Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. If you guys enjoyed the show, don't forget to like and subscribe. It does make a difference, all the support we get. And if you did like the show, remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at the GSMC Sports Network or GSMC Podcast Network. And for the GSMC Hockey Podcast, I was Garrison McDaniel. Thank you for all of your support once again, and have a fantastic evening and have a fantastic weekend.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.